I'm just interested in startups, and we have some idea with one student that may become a startup. Who knows?
Great.
Learn more about it.
Hi, I'm Chauvet Farcray. I'm a research scientist here working in machine learning and data science, and I'm here to learn how to start the next Google.
Good. Goals are good, high goals.
We almost could.
Hi, my name is Miriam. I'm a first year PhD student. I'm working on NLP, and I'm interested in startups because NLP involves a lot of innovation. So maybe in the future I'll be able to launch on.
Sure. Perfect.
Hi, I'm Shi. I major in science and I focus on data science now.
Hi, my name is Joe. I work with the Vista Group as a research programmer.
Great.
Other than for 3-4, I'm here because I'm just curious about the startup world.
Good to be curious.
Hi, I'm Lucas Ferrer. I work with the Center for Knowledge Graphs. And likewise, I'm curious about startups.
Great.
Hi, I'm Tamme Gowda. I'm a PhD student and also a research programmer here. I work on machine translation. I'm a PhD student. I would be curious, what's next after PhD? Can startup be an option?
Okay. Good.
Hi, I'm Joel, and I'm a research programmer here, and I work in data science and machine learning projects. My reason for being here, other than the food, is also to just be aware of what are the possibilities if it comes across that there's something that can be made into a company or something.
Okay, good.
I'm Jeremy. I'm a research computer scientist and lecturer in the informatics department. And I'm mostly interested in potential, I work in cybersecurity, so I'm mostly interested in potential transitional opportunities for my research and if there's other opportunities for students.
Good.
My name is Christoph. I work in the same division as Jeremy. Same topics pretty much. I see a lot of potential for transition every now and then. In the experiments we run, sometimes we get great results that are very practical and very useful, but academia doesn't care about this because academia is more focused around theoretical results, which are also very interesting, of course. But I see potential that sometimes, while we don't have time to work on that, it's not valued in academia, so we just, turn the page, present results, and go to the next level. But maybe there was something great to do here, and we didn't explore it.
Good.
So I think that the startup world might be the right place to explore these, sort of results sometimes that can scale into industrial products that could be very useful in the real world.
Okay, good. Hi.
Hi, I'm Mehnush. I'm a PhD student. I work on applied machine learning, and I've recently worked on a project about cryptocurrency manipulations and pump and dump schemes. So we have all these results in our paper, and I'm very curious if we can actually, from our model, build a warning system for the users so that we can warn them that there is a pump and dump, there is a manipulation scheme happening.
Okay.
So it's really interesting for me to see if my research can be applied in a real world setting.
Okay, and hopefully make some money.
Yeah.
That's good.
My name is Yigal, Y-I-G-A-L, those who don't know. I would like to know what kind of things are available for others at ISI, so I advise them on these things.
Sure.
I was also involved in a startup that limped along for quite a while and then died.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that.
No, I had this.
Oh, yes, there is. What do you mean?
No, but you'll see. It happens.
I had this stock in another startup. I didn't get anything.
Get something else to retire on.
Yeah.
Sure, you learn a lot. My name is Daniel. I work in semantic web knowledge graphs. And I'm here because I would like to know a little bit more about the process and the risks involved.
Okay.
Risks, points of failure and stuff.
Okay, cool.
My name is Goran, and I work here as a postdoc research associate, and it's mostly agent-based simulations, machine learning, and social computing. And So I know very little about industry, almost nothing. I would say nothing. So I really want to learn more.
Okay.
So I start from zero. So anything, whatever I learn, it's good. It's better.
Great.
Which way should I be facing?
Whichever you like. I have a problem. I move around too much. So.
Okay, great. Well, you heard that right. I started my career in fashion design, but by 1990, I was at the intersection of tech and entertainment, really looking at the consumer market. So I ended up at Time Warner at the early age of computer games. Today, what I do is I help companies in the entrepreneur sector learn how to pitch for funding and how to clearly communicate all that stuff inside your head in a small way that others can comprehend.
Hi, I'm Natasha Lepore. I'm here because Farzin invited me. So I'm an alumna of the I-Corps program. So I'm here to encourage you guys to participate if you're interested. So I have a lab at Children's Hospital, and our lab it's called Cyborg, and it does computational neuroanatomy. And a few years ago, we went to see the head of radiology and said, okay, we're developing all these software in the lab, but at this point, they just die when the student leaves, or they're not that useful for the clinic, and we'd really like to do something useful clinically. And so that's where the inspiration for our software that we developed and then did customer discovery through I-Corps program came about. And so we did I-Corps in 2016 and 2016, 2017. And then now we're downstairs on the 5th floor at the Viterbi garage for this year. And and then so feel free if you have any questions, come and see me downstairs or if you want my email address after this. So.
Perfect. And great, because you've done basically almost most of the programs that we have available. Yeah. And, we'll certainly use you to kind of, as we go through some of the topics we're going to discuss, what worked, what didn't, what was your experience as someone who's gone through some of this?
Hi. I'm Dedeep. I work in neuroimaging at Imaging Genetics Center with Dr. Thompson and Dr. Brasky. So I was actually interested because I know you have the startup Voxel Healthcare, so I wanted to see the direct clinical applications of the research that we do. So I thought this would be very interesting.
Matt, I also work at the Imaging Genetics Center, and I'm curious about industry and what it means for us to bring research ideas to a space that we can actually impact people, and what we can see things happen. So,
Okay, good. Good news is all here for the right reasons, and even if you aren't, you got some good food you can enjoy. But so let's get in there just to end real quick. Why do you think startups fail? There's no wrong answers. They could take a gander. Why does a startup fail?
They overextend themselves.
Okay, in what way?
Financially.
Okay.
Scope.
Okay. What else?
I think it's natural, right? Even when you start something, doesn't have to be that it needs to be perfect. If you start a research project, it may go well, not good, not going well. I think more or less, some startups fail because then the best one will eventually grow and become bigger companies, and So I think it's kind of natural that they should fail. The thing is how we can avoid being those that fails.
Absolutely. How do you do that, right? Because you're hitting it on the head. This is kind of what you were describing, right? If you're kind of blindly going around, just like research, just like anything else, it's almost gambling, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyone else? Who else?
They don't find the right management. They don't target the right market.
Okay, interesting. All right, they don't know who their customer is.
Management, because they don't know how to plan very well, or they don't know how much time does it get to develop certain things, especially new people. If you are, they think that they take way less time than it really takes, or
that time management, that people, that team. Okay.
Talk about my own experience. I think what happened in our case, I'm a believer in the technology, but I think the there was a lack of understanding of the financial aspects of running the business, which allowed the company to reach a situation where it was so desperate for funds that someone else could come in and buy the technology for very little, just to prevent bankruptcy.
Right, okay. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
Sometimes the vision isn't quite the match for the technology. So starting in the 90s, there was vision and the technology just wasn't there yet, which means timing.
Okay. We'll talk about that as well. Yep.
I mean, this is more on timing, but sometimes it's either timing or bad luck, which is to say that, you can imagine, companies that if there's tectonic shifts in technology, that change the sort of the landscape, and you happen to be, on the outside of that technology.
Okay.
Kind of goes along with that. Maybe they overpromise, right, and they underdeliver, and
Sure. And most of the stuff that you guys are getting at is a little bit further even down the line, because when you start up as a startup, you're day one. One of the things that one of you brought was customers, not knowing your customer, but really this is a big driver, right? Look, building something that nobody wants, right? Remember, we're talking about commercialization here. There's an echo. Over here. It's weird.
You're just going through some microphones.
Yeah, okay.
You go better over there.
So you built something that nobody wants. And here's what we're talking about. I can guarantee you every single one of you can go build something today and go make some money, right? Whether it's just friends and family or someone just feeling bad and giving you a couple bucks, whatever it is, you can make some dollars. But it's about commercialization that we're talking about here, right? It's about having a sustainable commercial business, right? So building something that nobody wants, and so this is one source, Illumination Consulting. Here's another group of folks, CB Insights. Again, no market need, basically translating, building something that nobody wants, all right? So yeah, I mean, sometimes you gave the example. I mean, sometimes the tech is it's really cool, right? I mean, when this thing first came out, everybody was like, if you were in the technology space, this was something cool. You wanted it. But again, it was more of a fad at that point, right? I mean, everyone can make a little slinky or something like that. But again, it's not a repeatable, scalable business model. All right? So you're probably asking yourself, well, do people really actually build things that people don't want, right? Well, that was a previous example, but absolutely. So most of these that I'm going to give you is more of a joke, kind of lighten the mood, but I mean, you get the idea, right? So number one, everyone here had ramen before? Hot noodles?
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of tricky to get it in there. Why is it that we all don't have one of these, right? I mean, it's reasonable to have if you enjoy ramen, but we don't, right? I don't know. It's the safety vest for your chickens. What was really neat about them, these are things on the internet, by the way, and what was really neat about them, they had actually done a good job of sub-segmenting their customers. They were talking about the fact these weren't just for any chicken, these were for urban chickens, not rural chickens.
Big market, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, we know the chicken crossed the road and it was safe, at least, right? This is a doozy. This is literally you're siphoning, snot out of your child's nose to clear things up. Now, here's the fun part. The look on your faces makes you not ready to throw up. And this is probably not a good deal for lunchtime. Should delete this for lunch and learns. But this is an actual product. But the fun part is every time I put this up, there's usually one person, in a group of hundreds that says, "Oh yeah, I love it. I use this." Right? Do you use this? Yeah. So there is, right? So again,
I cannot look at you.
Again, it's about socialization.
Why?
The mucus doesn't go all the way.
Doesn't mean that you have to. You just got to be careful not to suck too hard because then you
suck too hard. But it saves you the night.
Who here works out a lot? Who's a gym rat? Wouldn't you like to just have a beautiful six-pack without having to work out? What's better than that, right? All right. So joking aside, let's talk about really quickly how this program came about, why it's there. So I-Core. Innovation Core, this is the problem it's trying to solve or help with. These are real numbers. 7.47 billion is this year's fiscal year's budget request for new research and projects. Okay, this is grant money that big universities like ours get, and it accounts for 24% of all federal research funding. All right, these are the grant money that the National Science Foundation gives you. So the question they ask is, how can we increase the economic and societal impact of these research dollars? Right. So what does that mean? I mean, in plain English, what are they trying to
get it out of the ivory tower and actually help somebody?
And what does that mean? Yeah.
So make
bang for the buck.
Tech transfer. Tech transfer, which causes
economy to grow.
Right. It's creating jobs. Right. I mean, look, every investment. Right. This is an investment our government is doing. Right. They're giving us grant money so we can make neat things, cool things, research But it's really about, okay, what do I get back for this instead of just a shelf full of stuff, right? This is about how do we give back, which is create jobs. How do we take the stuff that's been put in the lab and create jobs with it? Well, in order to do that, I think someone brought this up, is you need to figure out how to reduce that risk, right? So let's use this, this is as tricky as I'm going to get with math here. This is a little graph over here. But so anyone who's played baseball kind of gets this, but this is how business works, right? So we live in LA, so let's take the movie industry as an example, all right? Let's say Sony Pictures. This is basically all the movies that you never see because they produce them, the TV shows, movies, blah, blah, blah. That not only did they not go to theaters, they didn't even go to Blockbuster, didn't go anywhere, Netflix or anywhere like that. It just died. Right? These are the things that probably got produced somewhere and shown on Netflix or, something happened. There's some revenue, right? And these are your Oscar nominees, right? These are the ones that either got nominated or won some awards. And these movies pay for everything here, okay? Venture capital is the same way. So how does venture work? When you go, VCs to get money, they know that a significant portion of the investments they've made are not going to work out, right? Because there's a high risk of you failing as a startup. There's a bunch of businesses that make it. These are sustainable businesses. These are your Googles. You wanted to be the next Google? You wanted to be the next Google? Absolutely. So have your goal here, but it's also pretty wonderful to be right here, okay? So what were they interested in? In a program that helps shift the curve. And as you can see, if anyone ever comes to you and says, I have a methodology or I have a method or something that will reduce your risk to zero, run the other way. That's their business model. They're stealing from you. That's snake oil, all right? But really it's about shifting this curve so you can help reduce this risk, have less of the failures. And more importantly, again, this is about job creation, sustainable businesses, help make this area bigger, right? Because we get it. Everyone wants to be the next Google, but this is a really, really nice spot to be, okay? So how do they do it? So there's a gentleman named Errol Larkwick. He used to be a program director at the NSF. The other gentleman, his name is Steve Blank. He's a serial entrepreneur that put this whole lean startup methodology thing together that we're going to talk about what it is. They got together because Steve was teaching it, this methodology now at Stanford, but it was a semester-long class. Errol said, "Hey, look, we want to put a boot camp style program together. Can we try it?" And so basically, this is how this National I-Corps Lean Startup course thing came about, right? And we'll get to the details of this program, what it entails, how long it is, what you get out of it. You do get, it is a grant program. You get $50,000, but we'll tell you what you can do with that money. And I'll tell you one thing you can't do is build stuff with it. Okay, it's nothing about your product. It's not about the technology because you're already getting that with their technology grants. But the methodology from this program is what you're going to use. Okay, what are the program goals? Two main goals. One is really around folks that are, the PIs, right? The faculty and the PIs that don't ever want to become entrepreneurs. Look, they got a fantastic job, got tenure, why you want to leave, right? But at the same time, you learn how to approach research differently in your lab, okay? So instead of literally saying, kind of like you were saying, even when you do research, a bunch of stuff could just be just outright failures, thinking about a problem to solve, right? And so it's really about translating research and innovation in a different way when you approach how you do stuff differently in your lab. The other side is about someone, and these are the people that we call the entrepreneur leads in ICOR. These are for the folks that actually might be interested in seeing if what they're doing can translate out, and is there innovation that can have economic growth? Can I have a startup? Usually these are grad students, postdocs, and other folks that work with the PI, with a faculty member. Okay. So with that, I just want to, is there anything you want to add? I mean, you're on this side, but you did this as well, which is a little bit more unique.
Right. Yeah. I guess, and there are a few faculty that are sort of in both. So I guess, yeah, when you were saying that, I was like, yeah, but it's not quite that divided.
Right. No, yeah.
But it did help for research as well, and just to have like sort of more of a concept of, okay, like whatever problem we're working on, we should really go and ask the doctors if they care, or whoever is going to be in the end the person who's dealing with this particular problem, whether they care or not. And well, for me, that was really helpful even in my research.
Cool. So really quickly, what is a startup? How would you define a startup?
Something that starts in a garage.
Okay.
Anything before Series C?
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. All right.
I like the blank definition, which is a hypothesis waiting to become a business.
Okay. That's interesting. Yes, absolutely. Well, we'll jump into that in a second. Absolutely. So one thing that we do know is that this is no longer a true statement. So, does anyone have kids, or have little cousins, or just no children?
He must.
Oh, okay.
I just use that thing for
Right. You're applying that to just random kids in the street. It's like, with friends. Got a runny nose. Let me solve this for you.
He sometimes comes to my office like with these people.
So, you got a. How old is your child?
I got two. 7 and 2.
7 and 2. Okay. So, just between the 7 and the 2-year-old, do you speak to them the same way?
No way.
Do you feed them the same way?
I wish.
Yeah. Right. As an adult, do you talk to them the way you do to other adults?
No.
Right. And so, just because they're humans and they're little versions of us doesn't just mean that we're identical, right? There's different expectations. There are different stages in their life, right? And so, the fact that, and even in some business schools, they really just treat a business, a startup, as a vetted commercial entity that's out there doesn't make any sense, right? You wouldn't take your 2-year-old and sit down and be like, hey, time for taxes. Bring out your receipts. So this is what we do now. So the definition of a company right now, an established, mature company, is really an organization that executes a plan, right? The job is to sell a product or service in exchange for revenue and profit. They know who their customer is, they've been doing it, and that's the job. The key word here is executes, right? And they're executing a plan, a business plan, right? And I'm sure, has anyone here heard the word business plan? Yeah, you hear that all the time. Oh, you need to create a business plan. That's the only way anyone's going to give you money. Well, okay. But business plans really work well here because they're very, very expensive and they take a lot of resources. Has anyone done a business plan? Yeah. Is it fun?
No.
Yeah. How long did it take? How long typically does it take to do one?
Well, it's not like it's finished, right? I mean, you do it and then a couple months later you do it again.
Yeah, right. And your plans, especially if you're a publicly traded company, your plans become public because that's how your investors know what your plan is for that year, right? Who runs a corporation? What's the role of someone, the title of someone who runs a corporation typically?
CEO.
Yeah. And what does that stand for? Right. Executive. Right? It's their job to execute the plan, put together the team, the resources, blah, 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 to execute the plan that they put together. Okay? Definition of a startup is a lot different. It's a temporary organization designed to search for repeatable, scalable, profitable model. Okay? You don't have that model. You don't have that business plan. You don't know who your customer is. Okay? So you have to go find that out very quickly. So this is the key. Startup search and companies execute. That's the biggest difference between these. Okay? So that's the outcome. And really, when we talk about a business plan and a business model canvas, those are two different byproducts that come whether you're executing or you're searching. Okay? So really quickly, we'll just, a lot of definitions and stuff here, but a business model is a mechanism. It's this document that tells you what you're going to do and how you're going to execute on that plan to sell that service. Okay? Business plan is a document that represents your strategy and expected financial performance over the years to come and who the players are. All right? So we're going to talk about this. So there's basically this methodology, lean startup. The main goal is to help you reduce your risk of failure. Right? We won't eliminate it, but reduce it. And it's based on a framework called a business model canvas, which we're going to get to, and a methodology, which is really just talking to your customers. All right? And we're going to go through that in 1 second. So on a daily basis, can you guys give some examples of how, all right, CEO, what does a CEO of a mature company do? What's one of the things, when they wake up in the morning or go to the office, what do they do?
Meetings.
And what do they do is not meeting?
Make sure that the plan is executed well.
Okay, yeah. I mean, they check in with their staff. Where are you with this? This plan was this. Are you on track? Blah, 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 right? Other things they're doing, they're looking for, business development, right? They're meeting with the board, things like that. They know who their customers are. What about as a founder or a co-founder of a startup? What is your primary job?
So much. Making sure things don't fail.
Figure out if it worked or if it failed, whatever they tried last week.
Say that again, sorry.
So whatever their team members failed last week, did it work? Did it not work? Analyze why it failed.
Yeah, well, one of the main things, going back to this definition, right? If you go... Say that again?
So they're looking for customers.
Yeah, absolutely. You're searching for a repeatable, scalable, profitable business model that's based on a customer, right? Who is your specific customer, and what need are you solving for them? Okay, remember, one of the main reasons that 40% of why businesses fail or startups fail is because they built something nobody wanted, right? So how do you fix that? Go find out what people's needs are and find a very, very specific customer that has a need that you can solve for. Okay, so let's go through this. So this is why we're going to talk about why the same using a business plan or the same process that a mature company doesn't necessarily work for a startup, right? Everyone know this gentleman over here? Mike Tyson, yeah.
I don't mind.
Yeah. Some folks I talk to, they only know him as a movie star. I mean, he used to actually be a boxer back in the day. But, I'm going to do my best Mike Tyson, but, he always says, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, right? So what you want to do is get punched in the face early, right? And by that I mean, go find out what the market is, right? Don't build this really, really, really expensive thing that you spent a lot of time on, and then go have the market punch you in the face and say, no, we don't, this makes no sense, right? Or don't put together this really expensive, 6-month business plan that you've sat there and did a bunch of Google research on, or paid some marketing firm to go back and do stuff for you, putting this thing together, and then find out the minute you go out and actually talk to your customers, they don't care, okay? Get ahead of that. So instead of generating a business plan, you need to search for a business model, okay? And this is one of the biggest ways that you're going to learn, right? It's about the customers, and it's different than what you're used to, which is what you currently do is do research and work in a lab and work on a product. In fact, through I-Corps, you do not talk about a product. You don't sell a product. You don't talk about your technology. You don't even talk. You will be trained, what you will learn is how to ask a lot of good questions and let the other person talk, right? The methodology is called customer discovery. Literally, what that really entails is interviewing people, right? You will get $50,000 from the NSF to travel around for 6 months and talk to your customers, wherever your customers may be. If they're in the US, if they're outside, they're more international, but it's really about focusing and coming down to one very specific customer or subsegment of a customer, okay? There's 4 ways that you learn. Most importantly, you'll learn from your customers. Second, you're in a cohort, right? You don't do this alone. You're with 20 some odd other folks during I-Corps, and that's 7 weeks. So you learn from each other. You learn from your mentors. You'll have some kind of industry mentor on your team. And then lastly, there's instructors like me who will teach you how to do the methodology. We're not there to give you answers. We're not your board of directors. We're not your advisory board. We're not taking any piece of your company. So we're not going to tell you, even if, for example, if you're a team in the ed tech business, I will not sit there and tell you, oh, this approach is stupid. I did this, it's wrong, blah, blah, blah. You need to go find that on your own. What we will do, though, is teach you how to go ask questions, how to interview folks, where do you need to go, what trade shows should you go to, things like that. Okay, and we'll keep you very honest. Is that a good way of saying?
Yeah.
We're very direct.
Yes, very, very direct. There were a few people that were very shy, like a few of the students who did the program who were very shy at the beginning, and they had to go up there and get a lot of very strong comments when they were presenting, and at the end they were much less shy. So it's a good training. I mean, even just for that, it's a good experience. Although as they were going through it, a little nervous before the presentation. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I think very good point on that. It is absolutely a boot camp, right? It is. Think about it, in the traditional sense of a boot camp where you go to the military or now with gyms and stuff. It is in a short amount of time, we're getting you ready for a different world, right? And so my brother is like you folks, extremely smart, got a PhD. I used to go visit him in his lab. 10 minutes in, someone should have told me, an autoclave, you can't warm food in it. I almost burned the place down. And, he exiled me to his office, and I was sat in the corner for 2 hours, and I couldn't touch anything, right? There's a reason I shouldn't be in your labs, because you guys are the experts in that world, right? And there's a reason you guys shouldn't just come out of the lab and go try to negotiate a deal on the product that you're working on, right? Because if it's really good, you'll lose your shirt, and if it's really bad, you're going to get hurt when someone laughs at you, right? So what do we do? What are we there for? We're there to really help you understand what the business world is like. How do we talk? What is the things we focus on? Who are your customers, right? And so it's really, the directness is not that I'm trying to be rude or anything. It's like, hey, this is how the business world works.
It's a little bit like American Idol. I don't know, or those kinds of shows, where like you have a committee there and
Shark Tank.
Sorry?
Yeah, like Shark Tank.
Or Shark Tank now, yeah. Sorry, I don't watch TV very much. I don't know what the latest things are, but those kinds of things where you have like a committee there, and then you're giving a presentation, and they're kind of grilling you as you're talking, and so it's an interesting experience.
Interesting experience. You can be more blunt if you like.
Well, I wasn't the entrepreneurial lead, so my student was the one who had to who took the brunt of it. And she was very shy when she started, and now she's actually really good at giving presentations, and it really helped. Like I could see throughout how much she evolved, and at the beginning you couldn't hear what she was saying because she was talking so low, and now she can go in front of anybody and just talk. So it was really good for her.
Yeah, I mean, so they were the first cohort, national cohort I ever participated in as an adjunct. You guys were in, and it was after 7 weeks, it is absolutely night and day the changes you see in the teams. You know, the ones that go through the process, and it is such a huge growth. It's amazing. So, look, you know, hustle. This is honestly, as a startup, this is what you need to do, right? If you're not hustling, someone else is. Okay, everyone in this room is really, 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 really smart, right? And the only time that it doesn't win is if you're not hustling, someone else less smarter than you is hustling, and they will beat you. Okay, you can't take the business world works on a different time, right? Academic clock and the business clock are completely different. That's the other reason why in 7 weeks, quick, direct answers. One of the things, the first day you learn is if you're on time for a meeting, you're late. If you come to our meetings, the workshop, you know, the I-Corps, when it kicks off, 8 a.m. starts. We close the doors. And you walk in, you're late. You get yelled at. And the reason for that is you do that in business because you have to do a minimum of 100 interviews in 7 weeks. You have, with business folks, you show up at 10:01, you were supposed to be there at 10, and you're kind of strolling in thinking, oh, I made it here on time. You're done. They're not going to talk to you, right? So it's really introducing what that lifestyle is, okay? So let's really quickly go through this, what the canvas is and for the business model and the process so that you're familiar with it. So who can tell me what this is?
Scientific method?
Yeah, absolutely. Even someone like me who probably used this in 8th grade for the last time, this is the methodology. This is how you will learn, okay? You literally go to an interview with a hypothesis. And it could be as simple as, I think that, director of purchasing at a, small health clinic in a large city like Los Angeles is a decision maker when it comes to buying X, Y, the medical devices. That's a hypothesis, right? Clean, concise, very, very focused. You go test it. How do you test it? You interview that person and multiple of those people. You will analyze and assess that information, right? You'll find out it's one of two things. Either you're right or you're wrong. And if you're right, great, that's a data point that says that's one data that helps me validate this hypothesis. And if you're wrong, you'll find out, okay, if it's not them, who is it that makes that purchasing decision? Okay, and then you have some data points. So you adjust and pivot based on the information that you're getting. Okay, and you're going to do more and more and more of these. That's why you need a minimum of 100 interviews just through that 7 weeks. Get you in this process. And you do this, rinse and repeat, until all these hypotheses that you've put together start turning into facts, right? Do you have anything some color on that you could?
Yeah, well, to me, it really, before that, the business world was just sort of this mysterious blob of things that magically made businesses work and happen. And to me, that really organized my thinking into like, okay, this is something that I can do because I know this process, so I can do it, and I can, organize my thoughts and actually works. So the one thing I would say though, 100 interviews is not enough. And what we did was, so they leave you, so you do the 7-week process, and then afterwards, if you have money remaining, you can keep traveling. And for us, we tried to travel for very cheap. So we stayed on people's couches. We, we ate at very cheap food. We did that, and we traveled all over the world. It took us a year and 3 months before we spent all the $50,000 because all we had to pay for were basically the plane tickets. But it meant that we got at the end 350 interviews ish. And only around the 300 interviewed did it actually start to make sense for us. So, and I remember it was sort of the same moment for both me and my student where we were like, oh yeah, okay, now it's starting to click. And so anyway, so yeah, 100 is really not enough, I guess is what the point. But it does work if you keep doing it.
So why it seems there's a good process here, but why the interviews as opposed to doing some kind of market research? Can you just kind of try to figure out what industries need just by reading stuff, or you really have to talk to the people? That's the kind of the critical thing.
Because they'll tell you stuff that you won't get in market research, because that's sort of part of the process, right? And you'll get some information that, you're talking directly to the person doing the thing. So the market, it's just that, for us, we were talking to radiologists a lot, for example, and you talk to the radiologist and you ask them, okay, so where would you use, if you're going to use a product that software, where would you use it? What are the problems that you're facing in your practice? What are the things that you need in terms of software, for example? And so you get really to that one person who's your customer, and it really helps to sort of, figure it out. And then also we talked also to some companies and they helped also. Sometimes they would say, well, the customer says this, but in fact, after we've tried it with them, they say this, but really what they want is this other thing. So we've had that happen also. And then, and vice versa. Sometimes the customers were like, yeah, they try to sell us all these other things and we never use them. So so you kind of have to talk to
insight on what they really
Yeah,
need.
exactly.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well said. There's nothing I'd add to that, except for market research is just, first of all, it's expensive as heck, right? You could literally spend anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000 on that. Second, it's very broad, because what we talk about is you really, really need to focus, and we're going to talk about why, right? It's not about, hey, tell me how, the post-secondary institutions in the U.S., some research, blah, blah, of how they make purchasing decisions. You really, really need to go in the weeds. You actually did one of the things, and the reason. There's 3 ways you can do interviews. In person, over Zoom or Skype or some kind of video conference, or with a phone call. Okay, this isn't making surveys or web stuff, anything like that. And the most important is in person, because you literally go there and see what they're doing, right? When you're walking through someone in a manufacturing plant, when you're in a hospital following someone and see what their daily lives are, you learn stuff, you see stuff that they might not necessarily, they're certainly not going to tell you on the phone. They're certainly not going to write it down in an email. But when you're walking, you get that active discussion, right? And we'll teach you tips and tricks on how to ask questions and how to basically really interview, right? Get deep in what the problems are that you can address. Okay.
And I'll add, at the end of all this, we actually published a paper with all our interviews, and it got accepted at a really good journal, and also. They put it for CME credit, which means like when the doctors read it, they get teaching credit. So it has like much more visibility probably than anything else we ever did before. So
good. So this is the process, right? So we talked about the scientific method. You have a core idea technology. You do your customer discovery and your validation, right? So you're going in there, you're testing, asking interviews, asking questions. And then hopefully you get to a place where you know who your customer is, right? So you're like, well, okay, what if you're wrong? Well, that's actually expected, because remember, it's a hypothesis. How many times have you done an experiment when you were right 100% of the time? It's just you're not asking the right questions, or you're not digging deep enough if everything you're thinking is right, okay? So it's actually. One of the core things that you're taught is it's okay. Be okay with the fact that you're going to be wrong, okay? Be accepting of the fact that you're going to be wrong, but then also be okay with changing, learning from what the market is telling you, okay? And that's what we call, the word is pivot. So that's when you pivot to, by having new data, you learn and you pivot elsewhere, okay? So this is the first time we're putting up the canvas. This is the business model canvas. This is the framework. It's a 1-page document, but this isn't your entire business model. This is just a framework that everyone uses. So your hypotheses go here, and you start testing these, okay? There's a bunch of documents that you supplement as you go through this, okay? So we'll come back to this and why it's important what all these boxes are in 1 second. So you're probably asking, well, why use that? Well, you use it because this is what you want. You have a core technology and you want to go deploy it somewhere, right? And you think it's this beautiful straight line because everyone wants one, right? Unfortunately, that's not the case. This is what your journey is pretty much going to look like. And in order to do that, you need some kind of document or framework that allows you to iterate and pivot as you go through this, okay? Second, it's a shared language, right? You've got a bunch of folks sitting around a table, right? And they're all going to be talking different languages, right? But this thing allows all of us on the business side, on the technology side, on the venture side, to have a common framework to be speaking the same language, okay? It helps you organize risk. So this came out way at the beginning. So we're going to talk about these 3 boxes and why they're important as you go through this canvas, all right? So first is, again, looking over at the canvas, these 2 boxes are your most important. This is the cornerstone of your business. A value proposition and a customer segment, okay? This is a need. Your value is, this is why someone actually pays you money for something, okay? This is a must-have need that you're solving for them. It's not a feature. It's not something that you think is great. It's something that they think is great, okay? And your customer segment is the person who's actually the very specific role that's going to pay for this, okay? Once you have that, then the rest of this canvas becomes relevant. If you start trying to make, fill out things over here and not focus on these, you'll fail because, again, you built something that nobody wanted, right? Or at least something that nobody wanted to pay for, okay? So now, these 4 together, when you look at it, is really about desirability, right? When you found a value for someone, you got the sales and the distribution, all that worked out, you have something that's desirable. Is that enough for your business model? Can you become repeatable, scalable, profitable by just having something that's desirable?
Profitable, no.
I'm sorry?
Profitable, no. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's kind of a trick question because if this was all it took to have the business model, you wouldn't need the rest of these boxes, right? But so on this other side, you have key activities, resources, and this is about feasibility, right? Is it feasible to do this? Are the resources around? Can I get these resources? Can I get the right things to do this? It could, and some of you were talking about, sometimes it's the technology is not there, right? I think every one of us, there's a desirability for us to have a time machine to go back and erase something stupid we did. But one of you hasn't invented that yet, so can we get on that, and then we'll move on, right? But it's, feasibility is a big thing to recognize. But last but not least, what you brought up is the viability, right? At some point, doesn't have to be day one, doesn't have to be year one, but at some point, your costs need to be smaller than your revenue stream, and that gap's got to grow, right? You want to be sustainable, scalable, profitable. All right? So that's the canvas as looking at it as a big picture. Again, let's talk really quickly about value proposition. This is the problem you're solving for someone, and this is your customer segment, right? What jobs do they want to fix? What is it that they do on a daily basis? Who is this? What's their role? Well, we use a word called customer type, because as humans, usually we think about the end user, okay? And we should always consider the end user. But then there's all the other customer types as well, because the end user isn't always the payer or the decision maker. There's also influencers, saboteurs, all these different folks. That's why you can do 100 interviews extremely easily, in my opinion, because there's a lot of people in that ecosystem. It's not just about going and talking to the end users, right? And you said you had 300 some odd interviews.
Yeah. I don't think it was very easy.
You have to learn the product. Yes, yeah.
Well, but it was also, so in our cohort, there was someone who was developing an app for fishing, and they would go to the beach and talk to, people on the beach, and they'd get like 50 interviews in like a week. And us, we had to find, radiologists who wanted to talk to us, people at Philips or GE or whatever who wanted to talk to us. So it was a lot of work just sort of getting people to talk to us. So we had to basically talk to everyone we knew and get them to get us connections with their friends. And so we had to spend a lot of time sort of networking. So
did you guys go to any trade shows?
We went to conferences that were where there's always a bunch of companies that at the conferences that we talked to them. Yeah, we did all of that stuff, but even so, we didn't sleep very much.
Oh yeah, I didn't say it was going to be sleeping. Sleep. If you're running a startup, you're not sleeping much. So yeah, go ahead, please.
Is BMC standard across big C's and everywhere, or is it something for I-Corps?
No. This is absolutely. This isn't just a National Science Foundation. No. The business model canvas is more and more accepted with any kind of funding. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not just this there's a bunch of supplemental documents that go with this, and we'll give some examples when I go through this. The value props in the customer segment are, by themselves, but we'll talk about, for example, customer relationships and channels and stuff, and there's supporting documents that need to be there that show you your costs and what you're doing.
And they're all using this specific format of.
Yeah. This is industry standard. So let's take a little test drive of a. So anyone know what this is? What company is this? Yeah. What do they do?
It's the biometric scanning at airports.
Yeah. So that's the tech.
Yeah.
What does that biometric scanning do for it?
Oh, it helps you get through the security line faster.
Okay. So perfect. So what you did was basically what people. This is perfect. You're perfect for I-Corps because that is what most people come in there. They say, well, hey, what's the value? Well, the value is, look, there's some really cool biometric stuff, fingerprints, eyes, blah, blah, and you can do it in 0.5 seconds, blah, blah. But so what is the question you get asked? What's the value? Well, the value is this. Right?
Skip the line.
This guy is looking at it saying, I don't have to stand in this. I'm going around, right? Well, you guys, did any of you travel to the airports during the federal government shutdown? Yeah. How fun was that? It was fun for me.
It was fun, but it was worth it.
Because I got to do what he did. I was just like, wow, this is not fun for you, right? This allows you literally to, well, there's no clear thing here, but allows you to go around this, okay? Now, you're probably saying, well, okay, well, this is a big company, right? They're at almost every airport now. If you know, if you can go to the Bank of California Stadium where LAFC play, you can walk in there, use the same technology. They've got partnerships with Delta, yeah? So you're probably saying, well, look, where's the focus that you keep talking about? Well, originally when they started out, they weren't at every airport, and me and maybe all of you were not the intended audience, right? It was at the top 3 or 4 largest airports, heavily trafficked. So it was Atlanta, LAX, Chicago, and JFK. And their target, again, wasn't us. It was people who basically travel for a living, right? 75% of the time you're on the road. And what they did is really, really, really focus specifically on that customer segment. And they also partnered with Delta because these folks had no experience getting into airports, right? They didn't know what to do. So, and what did Delta want to do? Delta wanted to allow their customers a special access, if you will, to cut around lines, and also get rid of some of the tickets and all that paper stuff that they carry, right? So with Claire, you literally, if you forgot your driver's license at home, you're fine, because when it does the biometrics, it pulls up your picture, blah blah, and you walk in, so you don't even have to have your ID, right? Delta Airlines, if you go to the gate, you don't have to pull out your and scan your pass, your gate pass. You literally can do your fingerprint and you walk in, right? So this is the convenience they were trying to bring. Delta was trying to bring to their folks, right? And so very specific, very small, coordinated effort, and it was something that was working through customer discovery and testing that they've done, right? And so now, much bigger. Now they're working on stadiums and other partnerships. They're working with Amtrak, all these other folks to get in that world. Okay, so we're not saying don't be the next Google. Absolutely be the next Google, but Google wasn't even Google before they started, right? So what's this? One more example. What's company? What do they do?
Rideshare.
Okay, good.
Recently IPO.
Good. So This is the tech, right? And the technology, the features, functions are really cool. Like, hey, you can pay right here without even having to have cash. The GPS stuff allows you to see everything, all that good stuff. We know how that works. What's the value proposition and for whom? Everyone. My mom doesn't use this, so my mom is eliminated immediately. She doesn't do any kind of non-cash transactions, and she's definitely afraid of getting in a car with a stranger, which I try to describe to her what a taxi is as well, but just because the car is yellow doesn't make it any safer, but yeah.
This one maybe is a bit different from the others because it's just another Uber, right? So does it mean that the market was big enough that you could just mimic something that's out there and it works, or did they actually bring something else? I don't know. That's it.
Sure. No, that's a great question. Absolutely. Think about burgers, right? McDonald's and what is it, Wendy's? Not Wendy's. Burger King, right? Yeah. We're not going to get into market sizing right now and understand, but absolutely. Right now, they're doing something very, very similar to Uber, right? Well, we'll get to Uber in 1 second and what their initial was, because right now, if you look at it, yeah, Uber and Lyft pretty much do the same thing. So yes, it is someone who's maybe intoxicated, needs a ride, doesn't have a car. We can think of all those different types of folks, right? Who else has a value proposition in this company?
Drivers.
Right. It allows you to have an asset that's sitting at home. So it's Sunday afternoon. You have two choices. You can sit there and eat bonbons, or you can take the car that's sitting in the garage that you're paying, a lease on, and make some money, right? At your convenience, right? So it is definitely, looking at both sides of this. Now, you're probably saying, well, yeah, Uber. Look, not only are they driving me around, they're bringing me food now. They're international, blah, blah, blah. Well, does anyone know Uber's first value proposition in customer segment? Huh? Okay. So initially, Uber, again, was very focused. It wasn't about, the drunk guy or someone having the freedom to drive their car around. Their initial customer segment was... Taxi drivers? No, it was black car drivers. So these limousines. And very specifically in two cities, major metropolitan cities, San Francisco, Los Angeles, that had easy access to the airport. Why? This is what they were doing. So let's say I have, one of these Suburbans, right? And you hired me to take you to an event, right? Mm-hmm. And so you paid me, let's say $500. And so I took you there, I dropped you off. And 6 hours later, when you were done with the event, I was going to come pick you up.
You wait.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there eating bonbons in my car. There's a lot of bonbon eating happening here. But now the value was, instead of me sitting there eating, if I'm, again, like at LAX, SFO, I can go maybe do 4 or 5 rides, earn another $200, then come pick you up, right? So I've done two things. One, made some money, and, probably living a healthier lifestyle because I'm not sitting in the car eating, right? So that was the initial market. It had nothing to do with bringing us food now. It had nothing to do with this international. In fact, if you think about it, that whole system turned upside down when the taxi union went and said, no, you can't come to our airports, right? There was a time where Uber or Lyft couldn't come to the airports, right? So it's really important to understand these companies that we look at, these successful startups, these folks, that are now raise a bunch of money. Some are profitable, some are not. But still, they're there, but they're growing. And their customer segments have increased. Their market share has increased. But initially, it was very small, very focused. Okay? So really quickly, we'll go through these boxes. So your channels are your distribution. So you found product market fit, but things just don't magically appear. Customers are expecting to be sold and delivered stuff in the way they're getting it. So you need to figure out how that gets done. You need to interview those folks. There's money. So there's channel economics. I was saying, supporting documents. There's a lot of math that needs to be done here to make sure this is something that can actually be done. Right? What are the costs? Anytime you have a distributor or someone else distributing for you, they want to cut. Right? How much is that going to cost you? Customer relationships. One of your biggest costs is going to be sales and marketing. Customer acquisition cost is one of the biggest costs you'll have. Do you remember what your customer acquisition cost was initially or now?
No, I don't remember.
Yeah, I know it's tough. I know you don't just carry that here, but it could be, tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on what your technology is. In fact, the more complex your technology, the more expensive it's going to be, right? You need to go to trade shows. You're going to need to go where your customers are. Revenue, how do you make money? Do you lease it? Do you sell an asset? Is it a subscription? What does your customer want? These three boxes are really, really important because you're a startup. So your key resources and key activities are going to be things that you do, right? These are your core competencies. But you're a startup. There's only so many resources that you have, so many co-founders. You're going to need to have some key strategic partners to do the other things that are really important, but you can't do. Okay? So you need to figure that out. Last but not least is your cost structure down here. It takes into account all the costs. We put this thing called a cost stack. Your customer acquisition costs, your channel economics, your partnership costs, all these things. Then you start looking at year one, what does that look like? Year two, year three, I shouldn't even say year one. First 3 months, second 3 months, blah, 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 all these quarters, and what does that look like? Okay? This is a company, just really quickly, that didn't do this really well. This was, basically what Amazon's doing these days, right? They're bringing you groceries from the grocery store. They had $800 million in investments. And what went wrong? Well, there's a investment readiness level, right? I'm sure you've heard of technology readiness level at TRL. This is around things that you will do in ICOR down here. So what they didn't do so well is this. These green ones were pretty good, right? They had no idea who their customer really was. They thought everyone was their customer. And the value doesn't really match up with anything when you really don't know who your customer is, right?
Can I also add that it was also timing? It was so early on in people shopping for you and delivering that they're like the people who kind of opened the market and got us ready for that. But it's really your generation that said, oh, okay, we like the convenience of this.
Yeah, not the right time.
Yeah, because they didn't know who their customer was, right? If they had talked to their customer, the Google Glass might 20 years from now be, everyone's got one. Right?
Yeah, but I do want to go back. It is partly timing because we all had cars. I mean, here in LA, we all had cars. Why did we need a van? And we didn't necessarily see the value of someone else shopping for us because I want to pick my own fruit.
No, that's exactly
Whereas
it.
the new generation, since you don't have to have cars the way we had to have cars, it's really important that we now have all the convenience that.
If they had talked to customers, they would have known. It was not a big enough pain.
That it wasn't time, yeah.
Well, exactly. Yeah. But you need to talk to your customers, right? If to your point, if it's not, it is a must-have need you're solving for. If I'm not willing to pay for someone to go bring me my groceries because, as you said, I have a car, you know what? I'm going to spend my money on something I must have, right?
What if it needs, if it needs to fail so others realize that the value of that failure? Like, I don't know, well, maybe that didn't work because it wasn't time, but if nobody had tried this before, maybe nobody will have tried it later.
Right, so there's a benefit to that. And just there's a huge shift in between a pre-internet world and a post-internet world. And you guys have a lot more benefit of that in your generation than in the beginning of it. But be very glad for the people who did envision something new, went for it, and yes, we get to benefit off their failures.
Is it really the case, though? I wonder if this is really true. Like, for the next generations of people on, doing this business model, doing that because some people failed at doing it before, or did they just have a different view on that? My sense is that
part of it is you have a different view because, these things didn't exist. I didn't even have a digital camera when I first started in business. I had to go develop film. And
yes, but what I mean is, do you need, like, for example, Uber Eats, does it exist because this company invented it and then failed and then they looked at it and took it again? Or if it never existed, Uber Eats might just exist the same way, right? Because there's a need that gets created by the market, and then you don't need.
And Uber Eats exists because they had a delivery infrastructure. There's nothing to do with people.
Exactly.
It turns out you could deliver food just as easily as you can.
It became a convenience based on cost, right? So Domino's, right, has that infrastructure in place, but it's an expensive infrastructure. Right. If I'm, if I own a, I don't know, mom and pop seafood place, I can't afford to put that infrastructure in place. So, but I recognize that I would outsource this to someone to increase my market share, right? So instead of having people just come to my place, if I can increase my market share and I would pay, this is a pain for me, I want to increase my revenue, I would pay a certain amount that allows me not to put this infrastructure in place. Absolutely. Okay, so really quickly, I want to go through the node stuff really quick and the programs.
Can I just add something about the business model canvas? Because I think as scientists, to me, when I first saw this canvas, I was like, yeah, obviously, right? Like that seemed like, so I think to put it in context a little bit, and I wasn't in business before this was invented, but I think before that, you'd go and pitch to people and sort of without really knowing who your customers were. And you could probably say more about this, but, and I think this is the first sort of evidence-based business. So to me, at least that's what I understand from it. So that before it was just sort of, okay, you go in, you have a great idea, and people think, oh yeah, cool. But now there's an actual framework to do it. And I don't know, you can correct me.
Absolutely, there's pieces of that absolutely, it was expected at some points. When you went to a VC, you literally wore your lab coat, you throw a bunch of formulas, and your CV and your accolades and stuff, and you're supposed to confuse the heck out of and to put a divide. And it was called "I'm smart, give me your money," and people would do that, right? And to your point,
it still happens with blockchain.
Yeah, it's
That's literally what's happening now.
It's happening with a lot of stuff, right? But for the most part, this is again, folks, this isn't science. It is the one thing that I'd like to get. There is no black and white. There is no secret sauce to this. There's other methodologies who are just as, some evidence-based, some not, that are successful. This is just something that works, and it really works. It was built specifically for you folks, right? It was this program, not the whole, talking to customers piece, but or the canvas. But the 7-week course was built specifically for folks in research universities who have high tech, deep technology that they're working on, expensive technology that they're working on, that they can go and find out if there's viability, right? And the reason I say that is this: if you're working on a mustache app, don't do this. It's easier to go code for 3 hours, throw that thing on Google or Apple Store, and see if you start getting feedback. This sucks because blah 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 isn't stable, and just you iterate on your product and blah blah. Because there's a cost benefit analysis, right? This is for when you have expensive stuff that you're building, and so instead of spending 6 months, 2 years in the lab, $500,000, $250,000, go find out if there's viability, and then you can go build it, right? But if you do 2 hours of coding and you got a product, don't do 100 interviews. First of all, you're not going to get $50,000 from the NSF to go build a mustache app. But but the second is be aware of what you're doing here and where this really works, right?
Are you saying that this doesn't work if you have just software because it's more sort of?
Oh no, it depends on how if you have just a front end, just an app, if you will, on that, yeah, the NSF isn't. This is the National Science Foundation. They're going to fund stuff that has some deep technology. It better have a back end of some sort, right? Whether it's a complex database, machine learning, AI, something, right? When it comes to because that's the stuff, that's the fun stuff you guys are working on, and that's what they want to invest in.
That mustache app have a computer vision technology behind it, so how do we know?
Oh, well, I was just doing the one that puts a mustache on my face, and I
Yeah, but it has to find your face and like turn it, so there's a deep technology there. How do we know you're building the mustache app or something?
Well, are you building that deep technology that does that, or just because I can use there's stuff that's built in that you can just overlay your mustache thing on, right? If you're just overlaying the mustache thing and spent 3 hours coding that's different. That's the cheap version, right? But yes, absolutely. If it's doing the second part, if you invented that piece of it, if you invented augmented reality, yes, absolutely, that's different.
I don't know if it's the right time to ask this question, but I'm just curious. When you go interviewing people, I have an idea, and you have some cool technology, some deep learning something.
Yeah.
How do you talk to people without actually telling the idea? Because in a sense, if you tell the secret sauce, they may copy it, or they may.
Yeah, you don't talk about your product at all, and that's something So let me. There's a methodology, and we'll start teaching you that in the regional courses, right? So what's really important is.
You still have to sell that you have something cool, but you have to give.
Yeah, you don't.
Ties enough, but don't tell.
But you don't have to do that. So basically, what we would do is sort of narrow things down. So first, we'd be like, so what are your challenges in your entire radiology? Like, what are your daily challenges? And then you narrow it down more and more towards what are your problems with software? Like, if you had. If you wanted a particular software, what would it be?
What was your technique?
Well, there's programs that we're going to teach you that. So I just want to go through what those programs are really quick, and then if there's any additional questions that you want to ask, that'd be great. I just want to, because we're right at the time here. So National iCore, when you come through, when you do the programs that we have put in place, the node, where we're talking about USC, Caltech, UCLA, you have a 95% chance of getting into iCore. There's an application process, right? You can certainly, if you've done NSF sponsored work, you can go that way. Other nodes, 50%. If you go through what's called sites, individual schools that have NSF relationship, 25%. The reason we have 95% is we put you through a rigorous process, right? NSF knows when they've gone through our screening process and our education process that the teams qualify really well. So we've had 32 teams in that time range that have gone from this node alone, that have applied, been accepted, and gone through the process, you being one of them. And also, when you go through iCore, it increases your chances of getting an SBIR grant, okay? So these are small business innovation grants, if you're not familiar with them, but usually a national average is 10 to 15% of getting those. When you go through iCore, you've increased that to almost a third, because it teaches you to speak the language. There's a whole section on this called commercialization plan, and everything you learn in iCore you can put in there, okay? So how do you get into National iCore? Coming through the node. There's a 2-week program called ZAP. We're actually going to have that here locally in the next less than a month.
Here, you don't mean at ISI, you mean in Los Angeles?
In ISI.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Physically here. I will be here teaching it.
Great.
And this is when you're asking how does this get done? We'll go into the weeds. You'll actually go do 5 interviews between the 2 sessions. It's a 10 to 2, 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. We'll have lunch again. But you're going to do some interviews before that. You're going to come here and do some presentations. It'll be a lot of fun, interactive, even more interactive than today. When you're done with that, you go to this program called Boom. That one is actually online. My colleague Lenore or Richard conduct those. Again, 2 sessions, but only about 90 minutes each because they're online. It'd be insane to keep online for 4 hours. You're going to do 10 interviews between the 2, report out. And at that point, if you've succeeded and done all the minimum requirements for these, you are now, at that point, eligible to apply for the national program. And we will then connect you with my other colleague, Victor Brantneris, who then acts like the program managers as at the NSF. They'll put mock interviews for you in place. We'll review your application, make sure you've covered everything. Again, 95% chance that you're going to go through at this point, right? Unless you completely just bomb it. National iCore, 10-week session. There's 10 sessions, 7 weeks. You do a minimum of 100 interviews and $50K. So this is the format as a national program. It is 7 weeks. As we talked about, it's pace about 17 interviews a week. There's a workshop. I just talked about one that's starting in Phoenix. 3-day kickoff workshop in person. The entire team needs to show up. You're there with your entire cohort, 20 some odd teams. Then you go away for 5 weeks. You're going to be traveling around doing interviews, blah, blah, blah. Every week you check in on a certain date and time with a small group and you report out. And then there's a closing workshop at the end where everyone comes back to wherever the location. So that's I-Core. And so any questions really about that and how to start into that program?
To join the sub, is that, I mean, do we have to do something about apply, or we can just kind of say that we want?
Yeah, no, it's an application, but it's not, I mean, it's more like a sign-in. You have to sign up. Yeah, and everyone that's either, registered here or RSVP here will get an RSVP to register for the one coming up here. Any other questions about that?
Yeah, who are more or less your customers? Like, research professors they have the technology, they would like to see if they can make this into a startup, or like, I don't know,
Yeah, so it's both. So we have, that's a great question. I mean, we've got the faculty and the PIs, and then they're grad students or postdocs that are working in their labs. Those are the folks that we focus on. Yeah. And it takes both, because the team makeup at the cohorts is that. You're going to have what we call a technical lead, who's usually that PI, that's someone that, been working on that tech, and then the entrepreneur lead, who is the, usually a student of or someone working in that lab with that professor. And then we have a third member who's usually what we call an industry mentor. So someone who knows the industry, can kind of speak the business language and help them out. Yeah.
So that it's more of a logistic question, but how does it work in terms of time management? Like, how do researchers typically find time to do these things while we all have our research to do as well?
Sure. It's 7 weeks and it is intensive. So and please chime in as well. The EL, the entrepreneur lead, takes the brunt of the work. It is their full-time job. They should not be they shouldn't be taking any classes at that time. If you're the entrepreneur lead, you're not doing anything else.
I guess my question is ISI going to let me do that? Or
yeah, exactly. This was also my point, because maybe you want to write a paper in that period, maybe you have a project to run and so on. So that's.
So I did it. It was very, very intense for a few weeks. So I traveled. I did all the trips with my students and with my student, and I did all the classes and everything. So it was really intense. It was totally worth it. But yeah, it means that the research takes, especially during the 7 weeks, it means that the research is a little more complicated. But it's only like the main part of it is 7 weeks. So you can always sort of manage.
No, you can't. You have a regular. The idea that we can always sort of manage 7 weeks off of a project we're paid for?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I still did. I didn't sleep very much, but I did both. Yeah.
I have a remote question for, I don't know, Dimitri, do you want to? Sorry, I have a PhD student. Is listening remotely?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's okay. You can ask.
But you can ask. You're there.
Yeah. So I was thinking after the 50K, the whole procedure, the whole program, are you also helping to find VCs, given the domain that the technology you want to apply on?
Yeah. So great question. So there's programs for afterwards as well that you've also participated in. So one of the things is, and I would really encourage you guys to come, and this is more just a showcase and panel discussions. We have this annually, it's called the Annual Technology Scouting Workshop. This year it's on June 20th. It is in Marina del Rey, so you really logistically have no excuses. It's at the hotel something or another right here, like walking distance. Hotel Marina Rey or something. And every one of you will get invitations now that you're on the list. There's going to be folks from industry. There's going to be folks from venture. A lot of good speakers, a lot of good panels. If you've done at a minimum, if you've done a ZAP, you have the opportunity to pitch in a showcase, right? And we'll teach you, we'll coach you, and all that kind of good stuff. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. If you're before that, okay. The startup garage, which is downstairs, is a great next step after you've had I-Core and a product market fit. So it's a year-round program. You basically get an office, you get a location, you get coaching, and you get educational opportunities. Okay, that's literally on the 5th floor, and there's like 6 teams right now, or 6 companies, I should say, in there that are working in there. This is the natural fit. So you've done this. You were part of, I think, the first cohort or the second cohort.
Yeah.
So wait, did you have Rob?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're on the second cohort actually. So, and this is an 8-week program that this is really fit for. Okay, I went through I-Core. I found a product market fit. You know, I found a customer with a big need to solve for. What's next? And this is where it gets real. This is where, okay, I want to form a company, right? So we'll have lawyers come in there that tell you about how do you form companies? How do you protect your IP? We'll have folks come in there and tell you about how do you form a team? You know, who are the important people that you need to hire on your team? Who are the people you need to have in your advisory board, your board of directors? How do you split equity? How do you do all that? You know, basically one-on-ones. In 8 weeks, you basically learn what you would get in an MBA program, right? But these are people that have been in the industry and teach you all this stuff. And it's 2 hours, usually in the evenings, a week. Okay, so that's to answer your question, Dimitri?
Dimitri.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's one of the natural stuff. And that happens. So we've had that synchrotron here, and again, it happens downstairs in the garage, and we've also had it at Keck, where we had a cohort that was really just specific to life sciences teams and health sciences teams. Yeah.
Do you often see foreign nationals starting companies?
Okay.
I just wonder how,
Yeah.
it's probably a bit different, right?
No, but we have. I mean, I think I was a foreign national when I started. I'm American now, but I wasn't when I started this, and my co-founder is foreign.
I see. And did you have permanent residency already, or?
So I did, but she doesn't. So I mean, yeah, visa is always complicated, but there's still ways to get money from National Science Foundation and all those things. It's just a little more. Okay. There's challenges that we're dealing with right now, actually, with her. But
But it's doable.
It's doable. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I mean, if you think about the whole I-Core program, I mean, look, research labs. I mean, we're very diverse, right? We got people from all over the world. And so it wouldn't work if foreign nationals were not able to participate and also then start forming companies, right? Now, I think it comes down to at some point where SBIR grants and stuff like that, the majority ownership or something needs to be, they need to be in the U.S. based. That's the one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't have your company be, let's say, based in, Colombia and then get an SBIR, but you got to be U.S. based.
But it's feasible. I mean, if you want to talk about it after, but the visa is complicated. Like, it's hard to get an H-1B through the startup and those kinds of things. But there's ways, I guess.
Oh, and maybe I guess the most important question for me is, can you do that while you keep one foot in academia?
I'm doing half and half. So I mean, not actually 30% startup and 70% my lab.
Okay, yeah, that's more the kind of setup I would be.
It's sort of, yeah, I mean, it sort of depends how much you want to work. But it's feasible, yeah.
Then I have to give on to Mary.
All right. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
We'll provide you with more information. If you haven't signed up on the list yet, please do, especially if you didn't RSVP, because then we'll make sure you're contacted and getting all the stuff that needs to be done.
Why aren't those fingers in the garage like that?
Because you don't have to.